Seven.
7,000,000.
7 new.
7.
7. 7. 7.
7 Point Highlander.
Hello and welcome to 7 Point Cast. My name is Liam and I'm joined by my co-host Mouse.
Hello. I'm excited to record what might be the highest quality 7 Point Cast episode we've ever had because this time we've got capers.
Hello, yes, high quality. That's what I do. I am also very excited to do this. It's been a long time coming. The people have wanted this for a long time, and we get to finally deliver the most important episode, I think.
We spent about 20 minutes before this podcast started recording setting up the audio under Caper's direction. So if you have any complaints, you can direct it to him. I don't want to hear it anymore.
Yeah, message me directly on Discord and remind me that I have a degree in this, and that should be how you should do it.
Really? What's your degree?
I have a bachelor's in audio engineering. So audio. Despite how bad the ad nauseum audio sounds, I do try my best. I am salvaging it. But yeah, it's definitely a fun degree to show people because I don't use it. But hey, now I do.
Well, look, it sounds like the rad Nors audio sounds good to the untrained ear. But
It does.
Is an audio engineering degree is it more audio or more engineering?
Well, I like to tell people I'm an engineer.
Right.
But it's definitely just audio. It's like mixing, mastering, mostly working on music, but I do get to flex a bit when recovering the ad nauseum audio just to make sure it sounds okay. I get to do a bit of compression and work there, but yeah, it's cool. I enjoy it.
So you're a DJ?
I actually was a DJ for a number of years, yes.
That's awesome.
I was. I actually have a SoundCloud and everything if somebody could find it. I dare you to go look for it. It's there.
Well, at the end of the episode, we'll have you plug your Spotify links. Okay, everyone can go.
Oh yeah, beautiful. That sounds, let's do that.
I'm just waiting for the future of these 7 Point tournaments when they get bigger and bigger and become more and more like a party. And at one point we're like, all right, now let's bring on capers and have a giant feasting hobbit in the background, with the rad Norse things on the side.
Yeah, let's do that. If Pat's listening, Pat should set that up. I'll play a set for everybody. That's great. Yeah.
And we can open up with it, or it's time to get rad. Let's
Perfect.
let's flex my dad muscles.
Yeah.
But of course, we're here to talk about Food Midrange,
Oh yeah.
which is almost it's like a deck with its own kind of fable in 7 Point at the moment.
Yeah, it's definitely it's got a storied history, and it's very recently been winning a lot more than it used to, and it's a lot of people have been engaging with the deck recently. So, very excited. I got to make a really cool vlog on the Red Nauseam channel about my me bringing it to the event, to end all events, to fight people, and the fact that I was able to to pull a day 2 on a deck that kind of looks like a Lord of the Rings draft deck. But yeah, it's been really good. Everybody really loves this deck. It's really stupid and funny, and I'm very excited to talk about it, as you can see.
I've got to ask, is your motivation for playing this deck because your name on Discord is also a type of food?
No, I've been Capers for as long as I can remember. Maybe since I started playing World of Warcraft in Wrath of the Lich King in 2006.
Hell yeah.
I've been Capers. That's just the name I chose. I thought it was fun and cool. I didn't know it was a food. And then as I grew up, I realized it was a food, and I started working on this, and people ask me your name on Moxfield is Capers. You're making a food deck, and I don't know, it just all happened. I think it's fate. I believe that's what people call it.
Well, fundamentally, looking at the Food Midrange deck, it is on one hand, right? It's a green-white deck. It's banned, right? But
Yes.
it's mostly green-white and full of creatures. And so I guess one would be forgiven for just going this is an aggro deck. But how do you feel about the deck? Do you view this as an aggro deck? Do you view it as a combo deck or a mid-range deck? What do you feel like your role is in these games when you're playing them?
Yeah, great. When you look at it, it definitely looks like an aggro deck because the cards are so cheap. And, it's a bunch of little dinky little legends like Samwise, Thalia, Astridpeth. That can take over the game really fast. But the way I've always looked at it is it's mostly a synergy deck. It's not an aggro deck because I can't really kill you quickly. There's definitely hands with Urza Saga and Astridpeth together that can quickly can kill you on turn 3 or 4 with a couple of Saga constructs and a Tolarian Academy. But at its core, the deck's utilizing cheap creatures that enter and create a game object, or cheap creatures that are essentially an army in a can, like your Ocelot Prides or your Voice of Victories. And those cards exist within the deck to power a number of very powerful payoffs. Those payoffs are mostly in the lands, in Tolarian Academy, Gaia's Cradle, and Urza Saga. And the deck makes a lot of mana. The closest comparison to the deck is Shops, which is really funny because it doesn't look like a Shops deck. But, Shops try to make mana. They try to spend and make these extremely large creatures that are very difficult to deal with. That's the same as me. I'm trying to make a 20/20 Goose Mother or a 50/50 Feasting Hobbit, and go over the top of all my opponents, which is, I think Carl calls the deck Universes Beyond Shops, because it's Shops, but it's just a bunch of Universes Beyond creatures. But yeah, it's definitely plays a lot like Shops, which is very funny when you look at it because it doesn't look like a Shops deck.
Yeah, okay. I mean, look, there are two things there which immediately perked my ears because I kind of already thought about them a little bit. One was when you're saying it's like a synergy deck, and I think this is maybe one of the reasons why the deck feels like just so cool and awesome, is that like 7 Point is a format where I feel like there is almost like a sense of like gravity or entropy or something that all decks eventually just become a pile of powerful cards.
Yep.
And it's like, do they work together? Sometimes. Is it cool when it happens? Sure. But the synergy decks like this one or like Goblins, for example, feel really awesome because like no one plays these cards usually. There's a lot of cards which exclusively have a home in here and they're not that good by themselves. They work good like together. And certainly that's the case for like all these food synergies. Like you're just not going to put these in a deck unless you're all in on the food. Maybe Astrid Peth, that card's like a reasonable, I guess, in like a white aggro deck. But then the second thing which you're saying, which I liked how you're like, the deck creates game objects. Like the fact that they're food is almost irrelevant, right? Like it's just that they're artifact tokens. Is that how it feels to you when you're playing it?
Correct. That's exactly what it could be. It could be munition tokens or junk tokens. It doesn't. The food tokens itself is not particularly the theme. It's just that Wizards very recently have started power creeping food cards. They've started power creeping these cards to be 2 mana. So it's 2 mana. You get a creature and then you get a food. Things like, for example, Tough Cookie. Like even looking at the card Tough Cookie, the implications and the power level of a card like that. You start to realize it very quickly when you see that Tough Cookie is a 2 mana creature that itself is a food token that also enters and creates another food token. So we have 2 mana to create 2 artifacts for Tolarian Academy that also then has more text that allows you to dump in as much Gaia's Cradle mana as you want to overrun your opponent. Like game objects are so cheap to make because Wizards has started to push that power level, and decks like this have been benefiting from it. You pay 2 mana, you get 2 game objects, your opponent kills your creature, but I'm up on that. I have material on the board, you don't. You've had to kill my thing, and I still have a food token, and I can promise you, like that food token's going to be important later in the game when I get out my Herska Sweet Tooth or my Urza to tap it, or if I want to improvise it to a turn 3 Kappa Cannoneer. The game, it's just the game object itself is what I'm looking to make, and food is kind of the most powerful way of going about that at the moment. So that's why I've chosen food.
Yeah, and that's cool as well because it means that like I guess like the synergy avenues you're looking for are actually very diverse. Like it's not like for example, like, to use the comparison again, if you're making like a tribal deck like Goblin or Merfolk, like Goblin, you're really just looking for other goblins. Merfolk, you might be looking for Merfolk or maybe like cards which are like reference islands. But food, you're actually looking for cards which reference a bunch of different things, right? Like you're looking for tokens, you're looking for food, obviously, you're looking for artifacts. You're even randomly in some ways looking for like counters because there's so many of these are associated with counters. Like there's like how far do you stretch your umbrella and when you're looking for like potential synergy payoffs?
Yeah, I mean it depends on the we try all cards like we do. There's me and Edan who've been playing this deck consistently. I also want to give a quick shout out to Brooksy, who was the creator of this archetype back when Lord of the Rings came out. He's been making the deck for a long time and he helps. We have a little Discord that we talk and discuss cards on, and Yeah, we try everything. I mean, there's definitely some cards in here that aren't specifically food cards, but they do synergize with other cards in the deck. But yeah, there's definitely some non-food cards that exist in here, like Kappa Cannoneer is not a food card, but it is probably the best payoff in this deck, and it has killed my opponents most of the time. Ocelot Pride is, generically an incredibly powerful magic card that, I guess the flaw for us when it comes to food cards is, can it make multiple tokens? If it can, it's going to trigger off Peregrine Took, who, replaces the tokens you make with an additional food. Or it's going to allow us to tap Academy or Cradle to spend that mana on, the number of payoffs within the deck, in Banquet Guests and Farmer Cotton and the Goose Mother. So, yeah, we try most cards. Things like Tameo is another great example of a card that just makes random game objects. Super important, super powerful card. Yeah, it depends. We try a lot of cards, and if anyone has any suggestions, I am so open to playing any cards that, that make game objects. It's the thing I want to be doing the most in this format, so.
Do you ever find yourself drawing the wrong half of the deck? Like you create a bunch of food tokens and now you have a Gaia's Cradle, or you have a bunch of token creatures and now you have a Tolarian Academy, or is it such that everything is sufficiently layered that it all works together even though you're pulling from so many different game object sources?
Yeah, great question. Yeah, when you look at the deck, you can kind of see that sometimes it can come together quite poorly. But, when you play a deck like this, a deck that is so unique, the deck itself, the 60 cards on your table, it's it's good to you, I don't know how to say it. I don't really draw into bad hands because, it's just a bunch of cheap dinky creatures. I will say there's often times where the deck is not very nice to me, and you draw all of your Lord of the Rings draft cards, but you don't draw your Gaia's Cradle or your Tolarian Academy or your Way to Get It, and those are kind of the most important parts of the deck. But shops, for example, like I like to equate this deck to shops. Shops sometimes has those draws where they don't get to put a turn 1 Trinisphere into play. Sometimes shops has to play a tap land and pass back to you. Then they play their Mana Vault, pass back to you. Then on turn 3 they start doing stuff. Food's very similar in that regard, so mulliganing is very important, but yeah, there's definitely times where you can find yourself, drawing weird cards like Academy Manufacturer, Peregrine Took, and Stridehanger Automaton are all the replacement effect cards that exist within the deck, and sometimes you can have these replacement effect cards, but no way to make game objects, and it's happened before, but I think, mulligans are super important. Your sequencing within the deck can really dictate how much of a board state you can create. But yeah, I think I've been working on this deck for so long that there is a kind of a nice little balance in this 27 creature iteration that always is able to do the thing, as long as you can kind of make a game plan with your mulligans, and understand, whether or not you're going to be thought seized or whether or not this creature's going to die. So yeah, there's definitely a few layers down where this deck does always do the thing, as long as you're switched on and you've got some reps with it.
And on mulligans specifically, it's been a pattern in this podcast. Very strong players and players that speak to us say that people should be mulliganing more aggressively. On the comparison to shops, do you find yourself mulliganing down to 5 very frequently, or is it just when you say mulligans, you're like, look, I just need a game plan for the hand?
Yeah, I think the deck can sometimes, there's like a siren's call when you mulligan where you have a hand of like, 1 drop, 2 drop, 3 drop, and it's like, wow, my hand is like, it's Noble Hierarch. I'm going to get out a turn 2 Herska Sweet Tooth, and then to follow it up, I have a Rosy Cotton of South Lane, and then I have, 3 fetch lands and, some other like, Momo Playful Pet. And in your mind, you're like, this hand looks great. I have a curve, I have the way to attack my opponent, I have a top end. But the way that hand plays out is you're playing you're playing a standard deck into somebody's Highlander deck. Your deck isn't good enough to fight someone. A hand like that just falls to the mid-range card quality of like Jund or Grixis. So mulliganing for a way to do something that's slightly unfair is the best way for this, synergy deck to go over the top of Grixis. And that's what I look for as well. I don't really like mulliganing really low because a lot of the times our payoffs can just be dealt with by Swords to Plowshares. It's not like shops where they can just slam an Ugin and be like, deal with this. But I do mulligan a lot more than most people because you do have to kind of find a way into at the minimum like one of our most powerful lands, as a Saga, Karakas, Tolarian Academy, or Cradle, or just a way of casting like a really super fast Kappa Cannoneer. Sometimes a hand with like Tamio and Astropeth together, that's a hand that's going to win the game almost all the time. Two super powerful cards, a very a way to spend mana as well. But yeah, mulligans are great.
I would
Highly
have
recommend
thought,
keeping it.
I would have thought that if you make like an 8/8 or a 10/10 and they swords it, you're really happy because that saved you cracking like 4 food tokens. Like this is life gain tribal, right?
This is not a life gain deck. I don't think they're very clear to everybody. It's funny because there are times like in my coverage game on MTG Bazaar's event and all events, I played against Dukes, who's a legend. Definitely recommend go checking out Dukes on Twitch. And in that final game, I was just eating 3 foods every turn to stay afloat against the big back end of Invasion of Ikoria, the Zalortha creature, and I was just eating 3 foods to gain 9 life every turn to offset that. And that's like the first time I've ever actually used the flavor text on food, which is very funny.
The first time, actually.
It's very, very rare where I actually eat foods without trying to trigger a creature or do something. Like, eating foods to stay alive is something I don't really do often. I either get run over or I run other people over. It's very it'd be very interesting. It's also funny when people board against this deck because a lot of people will bring in your Collector Oof and Null Rod effects against food because they think, well, it's a food deck. They're going to be activating their foods. And it's when I see somebody play like that turn 2 Null Rod, I just think like, great, I'm gonna win this game because you've kept a hand with Null Rod, I've kept a hand with 5 creatures that will kill you.
Interesting. Well, speaking of like quote unquote ideas, there are some cards where I'm wondering like if you've tested them and if like if
Oh
they
yeah.
So one is when I was reading all of the replacement effects cards, for lack of better words. These are cards which have something along the lines of, if you would create a token, also do this. Have you tried the Chatterfang, the one which makes the squirrels?
So Chatterfang has been tested. I did play Chatterfang in the black version of the deck. Because I'm banned, I don't have access to it. But I think Chatterfang is interesting. I think I would probably prefer to play, if you know the card, Camellia the Seed Miser. It's very similar to Chatterfang, and it more wants you to sacrifice foods, but it's one of those ones that also makes a bunch of creatures that get very big very quickly. I think Chatterfang and Camellia and other replacement effects like that, they are good, but Academy Manufacturer and Stridehanger Automaton are unique. Because Stridehanger makes 2/2 creatures, not 1/1s, because it's a lord itself, which is where it kind of takes it over the line. As they are all at the end of the day, they're all like 3 mana do nothings. That's what they do, right? They do nothing as you play them. They do, but the 3 in the deck at the moment are the most powerful. Academy Manufacturer makes 3 game objects per food, which is incredibly potent with Tolarian Academy. It allows you to double spell with your treasures or draw cards, and Peregrine Took is also unique because he is part of the infinite combo within the deck. So not only is he one of our best replacement effects in the ability of creating a food, but he is also an infinite combo with Nuka-Cola Vending Machine.
Come on,
Wait, I was like, an
Capers,
infinite
stop.
combo. Tell what do you mean an infinite combo?
An infinite combo. So if you have 3 foods, I'll just read Peregrine Took. Peregrine Took's a 3-mana creature. If 1 or more tokens would be created under your control, those tokens plus an additional food are created instead. And then he has the activated ability to sacrifice 3 foods to draw a card. Nuka-Cola Vending Machine is a 3-mana artifact that has tap 1 to create a food. And then it also has a trigger of whenever you sacrifice a food, create a tapped treasure. So if you have 3 foods in play, which is a short order for Food Midrange, and you have Peregrine Took and Nuka-Cola Vending Machine in play, you can use Peregrine Took's activated ability to sacrifice 3 foods to draw a card. And Nuka-Cola will place 3 triggers on the stack to create 3 treasures. You'll create those 3 tapped treasures, and Peregrine Took will replace those each with a treasure and a food, thus allowing you to reactivate Peregrine Took to draw your next card. And so what you're doing now is you've got the ability to draw all of your deck and create 3 tapped treasures per activation. If you
Tap though. Hey, imagine if they're untapped, you can just cast your whole deck.
if they run, it's yes, there is definitely winning lines on the same turn. So you can, for example, if you haven't played your land drop yet, you can draw your deck, play your Tolarian Academy, tap it for 50, and then just cast Kappa Cannoneer, Urza, and every colorless or blue card in the deck to make your Kappa Cannoneer huge. Equip it Lava Spur boost and attack on that turn. That's generally the way to kill somebody on the same turn because we have just enough artifacts to pump it to be big enough. But you know, if you draw most of your deck, even if you draw 20 cards, and then filter that down to a 7 that's going to win the game on the next turn with your 50 million treasures, you're probably gonna win. So yeah, it's a really cool infinite combo, and I love it. Nobody ever sees it coming. I'm a bit sad I have to tell you guys about it because now a lot more people are going to start killing Peregrine's Hook.
I just like the idea of like the tap treasures that when they were designing Nuka-Cola vending machines, someone at Wizard was like, "Hold the phone. This goes infinite with Peregrine Took." Yeah,
Yeah.
we're gonna
That's
take
what
these things down.
Yeah, I know. I mean, Wizards of the Coast does keep 7 Point Highlander at the front of their mind.
Yeah.
And they did not want Food Midrange to take over this format, so we have been nerfed in that regard, but still a great card.
Yeah.
Makes people very angry when they see the Fallout card combos with the Lord of the Rings card.
Yeah, it's true. It feels like MTG. Okay. Well, look. Okay. That explains Chatterfang. So you're really looking
Well,
for
look, Mouse, he was just being nice about Chatterfang. The real reason why he's not putting it in the food deck is that squirrels are too gamey.
game. Well,
Yeah, they are. It's too gamey.
yeah. So the next like kind of like card I was wondering about, or like class of cards, is cards like Green Sun, Zenith, or Collected Company, because like you do have a lot of hits, right? Like, is there a reason why you're not on these like kind of just like find the custom cards?
We have been on Aladamri's call a number of times, and I think that's kind of good. My issue with Green Sun Zenith is there's a big part of the deck it doesn't find that I'm very interested in, and that's your Pharmacon, your Banquet Guests, and your Goose Mother, so those big X spells that allow you to spend all your mana. And it doesn't really get you there. Green Sun Zenith, when you actually look at the hits for Green Sun Zeniths, it's a little bit narrow. Like the big payoff cards I want aren't there, and I mean, yeah, I feel like it's probably a playable card. I've definitely registered like Finale of Devastation with that Asmeretta Martakata Astina Kolakar card because you can pay 2 mana to get her into play. But Green Sun Zenith Collected Company though is a banger.
That
definitely
was an excellent attempt at pronouncing that card's name.
What do you mean attempt? I thought this was like a casual flex. I'm like, oh, Asmo, and he's just like, oh no, I know all the syllables.
yeah, of course I know it. Of course I have to know it.
Isn't the last bit Diculala? Like,
No?
No, I think the name is Asmerana Martakata Astina Koldakar is the full name.
Yeah, that's
for
definitely it.
for my modern or commander players. But yeah, Collected Company is a banger. I think maybe.
Can we take a moment to like recognize that Liam has been embarrassing himself by pronouncing the last of that card as Dickicala?
I thought I was flexing every time I pronounce it that way. Whoops.
All right, yeah, sorry. What you're talking about, Collected Company?
Yeah, I think it's a banger. But I think has anyone read the new 5-mana Ang?
No.
MTG. Dude, the new 5-mana Ang is
a special like laser pointer on like Universes Beyond cards or something like that.
yeah. No, it's 5-mana Ang. It's Collected Company on a creature. It just flips the next guy down. And then it flips into this huge monster. It flips into like a reach trample 5/5 that puts a 1/1 counter on each tapped creature you control. Wait, that's the wrong Ang. Sorry.
You're looking at Ang at the Crossroads?
Yeah, Ang at the Crossroads. That's the
I
card.
can understand why no one's looking at this card because it's in Bant and like it's like you and like Max are like the only Bant players or something like. Oh no, there's also that one guy who plays Oversoul of Dusk who's out to like specifically hunt down Grixis players. But yeah, that's the other cool thing about this deck. Hey, it's like one of the only Bant stands.
I will say though, there's a little bit of rumblings from the walks community about Ang walks. We're just getting a bit off topic, but there is an Ang walk deck that is playing both 5 and 3 mana Ang, because 3 mana Ang blinks your 5 mana Ang, and your 5 mana Ang flips your Spellseeker. It's a combo, by the way.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. Just once this points announcement comes down, Ang walks is going to take over this format. But yeah, cards like Collected Company, even Ang at the Crossroads, are very interesting. I mean, I haven't really tried Collected Company. I do own a copy, so I might just leave it up. I can see why it would be good. Flipping a couple of creatures over would be very interesting. I'd just be a bit worried of hitting if I was to hit Goose Mother or one of those X-Spell creatures, I'd probably feel pretty bad about it.
Well, that's what I was thinking actually. Like as what you're talking through the logic for Green Sun Zenith, I think the answer is kind of like a lot of these cards in theory are hits, but they're not really because you want to be casting them. And we haven't really spent a lot of time reading these cards. I mean, I presume guests can kind of do their homework, but the Banquet Guest has affinity for food, so you want to be putting this card on the stack, and it's a good rate. Like a single food on the battlefield, it's 2 for a 2/2, and it scales up very quickly from there. And it's the same with Farmer Cotton. Like it's an X spell which makes X food and X halflings, which if you've got one of those, what do you call it? The replacement effect things suddenly becomes 3 times as many game objects as X. So, like these are cards you want to cast. They're not cards that you want to what's it called? Like just hit off some sort of deck synergy.
Yeah, that's why I let Armory's Caller is always like on the very close to being playable in this deck. There's definitely been versions that have played Armory's Caller because the ability to like do it in the end step, draw the card, and then not draw it. You put the card into your hand and then you untap and do it.
Yeah.
And shout out to Farmer Cotton. This card is insane. You create like halfling tokens and food tokens. This is insane. I put this card on the stack for like 20 sometimes, and people just pick it up and read it and go like, "What the hell am I looking at?" I'm gonna put like 20 Rosy Cotton triggers on the stack, put 20 power into. It's just crazy. Farmer Cotton.
Rosy Cotton. They thought about it.
Yeah, and you can pick this card up with Caracas, right? And then you can tap your cradle for more mana, and then next turn you can do it again for bigger and bigger. It never ends. This card is, oh my god, it's a legend. Why is it a legend?
That's pretty funny.
Yeah.
Okay, actually, speaking of legends, the next like kind of I guess like pseudo synergy thing I was wondering about is have you tried like Mox Amber or Mox Opal? Like how many artifacts and how many legends are you realistically making, or is it like are they not coming down early enough?
I think that I don't know. Maybe so. We all agree that this deck will eventually just be a Legends deck. I think that's like the agreement. They keep printing legendary cards for the deck with just how Universes Beyond is.
Yeah.
Cards like these cards are getting cheaper and cheaper. Like Michelangelo the Heart. Has anyone read that card?
No. Google more cards. Michelangelo.
I'm sorry, you guys have to be typing. Let me just get off the top of my head. So Michelangelo the Heart is a 2/1 for 2 mana with trample, and he has Raid the Fridge. So it's the raid keyword, but they've added the fridge after it.
Right. Okay.
At the beginning, at your post combat main phase, if you've attacked this turn, you put a 1/1 counter on a creature and you create a food. But yeah, legends like that are
in this card.
This is a very exciting prospect for us. Is a creature that we attack on our turn until we play this. We get some power on the board. But yeah, this is a Legends card, and the deck is slowly twisting into this Legend. There's also I'm building up to a story here, so I'm gonna have to make you guys Google another card, Campsite Cuisine, which is coming out in December. This enchantment, when it enters, it creates a food, and whenever a legendary creature enters, it creates a food. And then whenever I attack, I may sacrifice X foods. When I do, up to X target attacking creatures get +3/+3, trample, and indestructible until end of turn. So the legend synergy within the deck, I'm glad you pointed out, is very important. And I think Mox Amber will eventually be good enough. Mox Opal has been played. Brooksy's version plays a lot more artifacts, like in the artifact slot. So it is online on turn 1 or 2 a little bit more. But I found that, sometimes Mox Opal would just be offline in weird spots where you needed it. And then obviously sometimes it's incredibly good. But Mox Amber is very interesting and something that I have, I'm looking at my Mox Amber in my collection, just like one day I'm going to have it. The
real answer is that they're just kind of waiting in the wings, right? Like you haven't quite hit critical mass of the the legends or the artifacts yet, but who knows, soon.
Yeah, I worry for the format once I start getting these legends into my deck, because like I don't think there's any archetype that they've been power creeping more than food decks, because like WotC's just realized like we can make these cards whatever mana we want, and nobody's going to play them in standard. So I mean, I get to eat, and it's very funny.
Okay, all right. I've got more question cards for you. So the next two are just like cards which make food in the early game. One is like Many Partings, which is just get a basic, make food, and the other is Spider Ham, which is, as you said, it's like a 2-mana 2/2, which makes a game object. How did this card miss out?
So I'll start with Many Partings. This is actually in Edan's food deck. Edan's another food gamer from Canberra.
Yeah.
And he loves this deck. He plays a 4-color deck, so getting that basic is quite important. Because it kind of fixes your second color being white quite often, and then also makes it food. I have instead opted for Mana Dorks in that slot. I could probably cut like one of the Delighted Halfling or Noble Hierarchs, but I have a really sweet Noble Hierarch altar that I play over this slot because I like the look of my card. But you could play many partings. I think the 1 mana creator food card is pretty good, and it's definitely a playable card. But Spider Ham is an interesting one. I think I mean I registered it at the event to end all events. It's only just recently been cut for for Boomy's Feast lecture, which I'll get to in a second. But yeah, the 2 mana ETB creator food is good enough for most food cards. The issue is that that second text on it of other spiders, boars, bats, birds, bears, cats, dogs, frogs, jackals, lizards, mice, otters, rabbits, raccoons, rats, squirrels, turtles, and wolves get +1/+1. It's quite not often online as much as you think it would be. Obviously Ocelot Pride is a great example of a card that it would synergize with, but sometimes Spider Ham just comes down, makes a food, and then just does nothing. And I'm kind of looking for a 2 mana card that does a little bit more than that. For example, like Boomy's Feast Lecture is another one. It's a sorcery it's a 2 mana sorcery, so it costs the same as Spider Ham. You create a food token and then you Earthbend X, where X is twice the number of foods you control. So in the late game, you can make it 20/20. In the early game, you can Earthbend your Urza Saga, and then you get to rebuy your Urza Saga again, which is a very potent game. It's a very potent way to take over the board because Urza Saga is generally, most people can't interact with it. And we are one of the best, Urza Saga decks in the format. So, one card kind of doesn't do much in the deck other than making it food. The other card has synergies with the parts of the deck that I wanted to have synergies with.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. I mean, with many partings, the Spider Ham logic makes. I particularly like the sentence about this enormous menagerie of creatures doesn't come up as much as you think it would. But with the many partings, for me, it doesn't seem like it's a Mana Dork slot. It just seems like it's Generosent, because you know what I mean. Like Generosent also is 1 mana get a basic, and you're not really getting the food unless you get 6 mana. So it's kind of like it's giving you the synergy portion after you've already achieved the mana to the point where presumably it doesn't matter. Whereas the many partings is giving you the food up front, right, where you're still trying to get your engine online.
Yeah, I mean the many partings is definitely a great card. I think you are probably right. The Generosent slot is probably where I look at it, but for me, Generosent is just such a banger. I think many partings was in my 4-color deck, but now that the committee has graciously pointed Reanimate and it's no longer playable, Generosent has found its way back in because people aren't often reanimating it. Yeah, so it is, and it just being this huge top end monster that you can kind of just put into play very, very early with Cradle has always been really good. But many partings, if we were playing 70 card decks, many partings would be in there 100%.
Yeah, it's waiting in the wings.
Yeah, it is. Revive the Shire is also another one. It's a 2 mana card that gets any permanent from your graveyard back to your hand and then creates a food. Is also a really playable card. You revive your Urza Saga and then you just put it back into play, and it's how do you beat? How can anyone beat 2 rounds of Urza Saga? I definitely can't.
Yeah, revive the Shire. It's cool.
Against my first Blue Eyes White Dragon. So what?
Yeah, I got a second.
2?
How do you beat that? I don't know.
Okay, yeah, cool. That's good. The next card I was wondering about is, and this has got to be going deep into the synergy, is Knight of Sweet's Revenge. This card always feels mandatory just on flavor. How did it get the miss?
Oh, get
This
it,
card-
flavor.
This card's a banger. I really do love this card. It's another one of those ones, if I had more slots, I would. Sometimes, yeah, look, I should probably test it more. When I initially played this card, what I often found was it was either uncastable, or when it was castable, I was already winning the game. It was kind of in that weird slot where I either did, I couldn't get my 4th mana. I was feeling pretty bad. And foods you control having tap green is obviously a very potent ability, but the card it is at its core a 4 mana create a food and then just sit there and do nothing. It can kind of pay itself back, but yeah, I don't know. I've always got it. It's sitting in my collection of food cards I should continue playing, but every time I've registered it, it's always felt a little bit underwhelming. I think the fact that, a great example, a great comparison to this card would be like Urza. And Urza's ability to kind of spin the wheels is a lot better and a lot more achievable than the sacrificing for 7 mana. But I don't know, it's a great card. I should play it more. I'll sleeve it up next week and we'll talk about it.
Similarly with Urza, right? Like these cards kind of live and die on the ability to like I guess Urza makes the constructs, but like this thing comes down and immediately pays itself back. Like and at least with like the Knight of I mean part of this is that I don't have an intuition for like how much food you would have on the field at any one time. But like I'm just imagining this card as being like, oh, you play it and then you just use the food to cast another green card, or to cast like the One Ring or something. Like you know what I mean? Like if you had 4 food, that would be epic, right? It's like, oh, here's Knight of Sweet's Revenge, and now I use all the food to cast the One Ring. And then then you're really off to the races. But is it like how much food? Yeah, there's 2 things you said, right? Actually, one was like getting to 4 is a stretch. Like, is that the case? Like, does the deck kind of like unless the third lands like a Tolarian Academy / Sky's Cradle, that 3 is where you find yourself typically topping out at least on curve, or is does it go higher and also just how much food do you typically have on the field like at any given game point?
Yeah. Well, excuse the pun, but it's often feast or famine when it comes to how many foods you have. Sometimes you have hands of, Ocelot Pride, Failure, Tangle Wire, and you have Voice of Victory, and those are hands you can't put back, but those are hands that just don't make food tokens.
Yeah.
So the answer is it varies. Often getting to 4 is not something I do a lot. It's often kind of I'm sitting on 1 or 2, and then I suddenly explode with a number of game objects to the point where I've just won the game because I've been able to resolve one creature that creates foods and then one of the replacement effects. So I've been able to I've used Ocelot Pride to tap my Cradle for 10, and then I've cast a huge monster that's Pharmacon. Which is why I'm kind of considering Knight of Sweet's Revenge maybe in this variation of the deck it could be a little bit better. I always the 4-color deck played a lot less dorks and a lot more like infinite combos. So maybe this version maybe it is good enough. It's definitely I've put it back down in my list of cards I should play. So I might sleeve it up next week. Okay,
yeah, cool. The other one was Sam, Loyal Attendant, the other kind of 3-mana legend guy which makes a food every turn. What was did he ever get a test like look in?
I've never done it. I've never played this card, but I trust Brooksy enough to tell me that this card stinks.
Oh damn.
That's what he's told me. Yeah. I look at it, I'm like, this card looks great. And it's got a partner with Frodo, so when you play it, you get to go get Frodo. Like so like I've always thought like it's this 3-mana creature that also draws you a card and then continues to make foods. I think in a 4-color deck it's maybe playable. I've always like linked it to Brooksy and been like, come on, it's got to be good enough. And he's always told me, no, this card stinks. Sadly, you don't really want to be eating your foods. It's a nice little flavor text where it makes, for those that don't know the card, it makes the activated ability of foods cost 1 less, and then it also makes a food every turn. But in the bad deck, maybe it's not good enough because it enters as a 3-mana card and just does kind of, your opponent can just be like, okay, I'll swords it, move on. It didn't create material until I went through to my combat phase. But I always look at this card longingly, just like, maybe it reads so well.
Yeah, I mean, just for me, just kind of look like I guess the reason I'm bringing it up is that just the test case of I make a food every turn, is that good enough? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like to get in because like I agree, the rest of the text is totally relevant. Like it's kind of it almost feels like like what Course of Crucifix is to lands. Like it's just the 3-mana 2/4. It sometimes might gain you some life because it's discounting the food. Like it's a reasonable blocker. It's not just going to get bolted. And it just kind of does the thing. But it's not it's not super powerful. But I guess it kind of speaks to how important is just like a random food to the deck, or does the random food have to also be attached to something a bit more game winning? Like you brought up Tough Cookie early. Like that card's very clear. Like it is a random food, but it's also like an overrun effectively, right? Like yeah, so I'm just kind of wondering, like, if Wizards just printed green, make 2 foods, would you play that, or does it have to do something else?
Yeah, I think green make 2 foods is, I mean, I don't think it's good enough. I think the cards have to do something a bit extra than that. There needs to be like, the 2 mana, like the 2 mana grizzly bear that also makes a food and then does something else. So, Astrid Peth is a great example. ETB, make a food, and then that ability to explore when you make a food is Astrid Peth to me is the prime, the perfect food card in that it does the thing where it makes a food and then it also makes a food every turn, so it does it both. So you get that you get that value on ETB, you get the value if you get to untap with it. And then it has that extra flavor text of like, when I tap my academy for 10 and she's in play, I'm more than happy enough to eat eat 5 foods. I don't really want to do that quite often, but when I do, I get to explore 5 times. So she becomes however big creature I want. I get to fix my next draw. She also is she's weirdly like good into like a Blood Moon because she just keeps attacking. You don't need colored mana to eat foods or clues. A card like that is the perfect example, but a card that 1 mana make 2 foods. It has to be good enough. It has to be good once you get those replacement effect creatures like Peregrine Took and Stride Hanger Automaton into play, and then maybe it's good enough. But I do like that kind of extra line of text. If Sam was a 2 mana creature, I'd probably slam dunk it in his deck.
Because I think like in my head when I've built like affinity synergy decks, right? Often I'd run like Blood Fountain, right? Which is this like black. It itself is an artifact which you can sacrifice it later to get creatures back, and it makes a blood. But functionally, like I'm running it because it's just black make 2 artifacts. And that's for like stuff like Tolarian Academy. But this deck you're saying is not really interested in, would not be interested in just making 2 food necessarily. Like you want it to be attached to an engine or something like that.
Yeah, we have to be doing something with those foods, and most of the cards they print nowadays has something that they can do with the food. There's definitely hands where that 1 mana make 2 foods card could be sick. Like curving that into a Tangle Violet would be just completely backbreaking for your opponent, but yeah,
like a turn 2 4/4 Banquet Guests potentially could be cool as well.
Yeah, turn 2 4/4 Banquet Guest. A turn 2, what is it? 8/8 Feasting Hobbit is pretty great. I think people would call that Murktide Regent quite often.
Yeah, the Feasting Hobbit. We actually haven't talked about this card. The Devour Food 3 has got to be like one of the most innocuous lines of text, but it's secretly really absurd. Hey.
Yeah. I want to shout out Joey from my Event to End All events who read the card. They thought seized me, and they took some other card and they picked up Feasting Hobbit, and they saw Devour Food 3 and they were like, okay, sure, and they put it down and they thought they took my other card, and then next turn I cast Feasting Hobbit for like a 12/12, and they were like, oh, I thought it was eat 3 foods for 1 count. I didn't realize it's Devour Food 3. You get 3 counters per food. It is an insane card. Like, this card for me has quite often come down as a 20/20 or 30/30. Yeah, it comes down as this absolute monster. And it's kind of the reason why Lava Spur Boots is this protected slot in the deck pre-board, because quite often you can just get people. You just like, they attack you, they feel like they're ahead, you have a couple of foods in play, and you just for 3 mana you play Feasting Hobbit and then Lava Spur Boots, you shoot it up and you just get in for 20, and they're just like, well, how could I have known to play around Feasting Hobbit Lava Spur Boots? Yeah,
that is pretty cool. I mean, look, this is kind of one of the reasons why I think you guys have got to get on the Many Partings, right? Just because, like, the curve of, like, turn 1 Many Partings, turn 2 Feasting Hobbit 5/5, surely that's good enough into lots of decks.
Yeah, it probably is. I mean, it feels good enough on paper, but then, you play your Feasting Hobbit and they just go, okay, Swords to Plowshares, let's go. And what do you have next to throw at me? But maybe Many Partings is good enough.
I mean, that's fine, isn't it, right? Like, you've presented a threat on turn 2 big enough to justify their best piece of removal, and then, I presume most of the deck follow-up would then be, you'd be pretty happy, right? Like, then the Peregrine Took is actually potentially like an unthreatened engine card, etc.
Yeah, look, no, I agree. Many Partings is a bit of a banger. It's a maybe thing. This is the beautiful thing about the archetype is there is like this huge collection of cards that are playable, could be played in any number of variations of the deck. For me, Many Partings was a little bit underwhelming, but for Eden, he says that Many Partings is like an extremely great card that he thinks is very good. And, even the reason of you saying like curving Many Partings into into a 5/5 on turn 2 is probably a great play pattern. But yeah, the space, like we haven't even talked about, like we're talking about just Bant. We haven't even talked about like black or red in like the
True.
archetype. Like
Yeah,
black.
the cards which sacrifice artifacts for value.
Yeah, we haven't even like I've literally never made a red food deck before. I just don't have access to red duels. I'm not interested in it, but there's that entire red side of the archetype that exists. There is so much to do in this. It's not really food in this game object space that people just don't brew.
Yeah, because like in red black as well, like you've got all your mayhem devils and your only code anvils and stuff, and you're right. It's like all of these kind of like random game objects matter, typal type stuff. But there also are some like there are like red cards which are expressly food cards as well. Like there's the Ragost or like the Gastronaut or whatever.
Yes, I think you're talking Ragos Deft Gastronaut. I think the name is.
Yeah.
Thankfully, I have a Rolodex of a food card in my head, which is a 2-mana creature that turns your artifacts into foods, which is really cool. And then you can sack a food. You can tap it for 1 mana, I think, to sack a food to lightning bolt your opponent.
Yeah.
Which is cool. I mean, this is a great example of a red card that I would probably slam dunk in a red food deck. I've spoken to people who have told me they want to play food with red in it, and this is the card that's made them want to play it. It's also a legend, so Caracas. It can be protected with Caracas. Yeah, I mean another absolute banger, and I mean banger is in black is Hazel's Brewmaster. Have you guys read this card?
I've heard of it, but it is once again it's one of the ones where you've got to read it. You in your what's it called? The vlog, you had that experience of everyone looking at the deck list and immediately asking the judge what all these cards do.
Yeah.
I feel like
that was the reason I sleeved up food for the event. I was testing with lands really happily. I was winning a lot with lands. I really thought that the Golgari lands deck was very powerful, and if I could go back to that event and play against the same opponents, I probably would have done somewhere near just as well as I did, if not better. All the opponents I played against kind of folded to a strip mine. I was always thinking in my head, but the EV of like your opponent picking up your deck list and seeing, make a guess, Ashford Peth, Feasting Hobbit, and all of these cards, they don't know how they work and they don't understand the interactions. It quite often felt like even through a Gitaxian Purple Thoughtseize, my opponent was playing with this kind of like blanket over their head. They didn't know what I was trying to do or how I was trying to win. They would just kind of like take each card. Some opponents would take my deck list, look at it and be like, do any of these creatures have flash? And I would say no. And they would be like, great, I don't care about them.
Yeah, okay.
I'd be like, great. It's like, great, I win this game, right? I mean, technically Thalia has flash. I would always point that out, but like, at that point, the people underestimating cards like this is kind of the reason why I played it. And Nathan and I had a big laugh at, there was this one opponent I had, Colin, who pretty much just said to me as soon as he picked up my piece of paper, he was like, can I just have your deck? And can I just like look through your cards, myself? And you don't have to do that. You can just call a judge and be like, get the Oracle text. But it was day 2. I was kind of, I'd already looked at Colin's deck list and saw shops, and I knew I was losing that one. So I kind of just handed in my deck, and, Billy and some of my friends came over and saw Colin with like all of these food cards in front of him and the deck list just going like, okay, that's that. This was it. It was very funny and a great experience for me at the Sydney event.
Is this Colin Harris from Wollongong?
It could be. I don't know. Colin's playing shops.
Yeah, we have a Colin who plays shops. Is he kind of like short hair, like
short hair, friendly guy.
Yeah, he's funny. He definitely God, we've got to get Colin to play more Magic. He like shows up for these events randomly and then does well with shops and then starts complaining that shops isn't good enough. It's almost like a sub theme of this contest that I have to make fun of Colin every now and then.
Yeah, no, Colin's great. Yeah, shops was definitely powerful enough. I put down a 12/12 Feasting Hobbit against Colin and said like, pass, make sure you're gonna have to kill this, and he was able to spin his wheels enough to find a cityscape leveler. So an absolute gamer. I think shops is very powerful at the moment, and it is like one of the worst matchups for us as well, because it is like very similar to food, but it just does what we want to do way better. Like my payoff is like a big banquet guess. Their payoff is Ugin.
Yeah,
way different in terms of power level.
Yeah, I mean, I can kind of see, right, like that you're in some ways like a mid-range deck whose synergy elements mean that you have this like go over the top of the other mid-range decks.
Absolutely, yeah.
Like that. The Grixis deck is going to have a hard time if the Farmer Cotton resolves. It's like, great, I've got like 5/1/1s, Baragwife's never getting through.
Yeah.
But yeah, then like the deck which then goes over the top even more must be an issue. Like I imagine combo is also probably a bit of a problem for this deck.
Yeah, well, Richard Owen and Brennan Crawford are the reason I stopped playing food and opted for lands because I would just show up to Pog every week and I would, I'd win my first round, I feel pretty good, and then I'd look at my companion and I'd see like Richard Owen, I'd be like, great, I lose this one, and then I'd lose to Richard, and then I'd be like, okay, cool, and that was my experience against combo every single like dedicated combo decks were very difficult for this deck because, like you said, this is a synergy deck. This is a bit of a side note. This is also the issue that Nathan experienced on Walks. Walks is a very similar synergy deck. The cards individually probably not on the same power level of Grixis's like good card only dot deck, but the synergy that Eternal Witness has with Ephemerate is why the cards it's why their deck is very good, but also very weak to combo. Because when you bring in these sideboard cards, when you bring in Force of Vigor, Soul Guide Lantern, Vexing Bauble, Ashiok, for example, you bring these cards in and you're taking out food cards. You're diluting what is your synergy to bring in these kind of one-offs that could maybe be good enough to stop your opponent. And that was a huge problem for me because I would bring in all of these cards and then it just felt like my deck didn't do what it wanted to do, and that kind of mid-range game plan of cast a massive Farmer Cotton on turn 4 or 5 it's just not good enough against Storm. So yeah, against combo the deck is very, very soft. I like to think that this deck, I mean, it's kind of like rock paper scissors, right? Synergy decks is supposed to gobble up mid-range decks. Mid-range decks are usually, I mean, Grixis is supposed to gobble up Storm, and then Storm's supposed to gobble up synergy decks, but yeah, give me Grixis all day. Like, give me Grixis all day. I'll take Grixis. It is my favorite matchup. I feel unbeatable.
Really? So interestingly enough, I mean, obviously I don't have any experience playing food, but one of my, I guess, my more first principles observations would be that Grixis preys on synergy decks because, like synergy decks often require like my one card is bad by itself, but my one card plus my other cards together are good. And Grixis is very good at just kind of like just picking apart the crucial piece because it's so heavy on interaction. There are obviously some exceptions, right? Like lands, the fact that the synergy cards are very difficult to interact with, card type. In Grixis colors means it can sometimes get away with it. But you know what I mean? Like I typically would have thought that Grixis would fare well into a synergy deck at first principles. Like what do you think gives food like an edge? Like what cards are Grixis having a hard time dealing with?
Well, the most powerful part of this deck is the lands, which Grixis just can't interact with. Like Grixis can't stop a Tolarian Academy Guy's Cradle Urza Saga, and
Yeah.
I think Grixis having to, we're one of the most powerful Urza Saga decks in the format. So Grixis having to spend actual cards on Urza Saga constructs is always a winning interaction. And I actually said this to Jim at the Winnowless. I shook his hand and said like my deck preys on your deck. I wish I could play against your deck more because my creatures, they enter and they create a game object. So anytime you 1-for-1 interact with my creature, I am up. I have a piece of material on the battlefield that's going to come up later that they just don't have. I mean, Thoughtseize and the Inquisition of Kozilek obviously suck for me. I don't like being hand attacked because it does, they can kind of pull apart the game plan. But weirdly enough, like, they can't kill, they've got nothing in their main deck that can kill Banquet Guests once it's in play because it can become indestructible. They're such a lean enough deck that they can't really, they can't kill a Kappa Cannoneer. Like 6 mana is a lot to ask for. And then, they have to have that exact removal spell. I think the way that food lines up is weirdly good enough into Grixis that I really like the matchup. And also, some of these dinky little cards like Mother of Runes, Mother of Runes can resolve it if they don't kill it on that turn. You can sometimes Mind Twist like a third of their deck, or all of their removal out of their deck. I don't know. This deck, it kind of trades. Every time I trade with a Grixis opponent, I always feel like I am up a little bit. They kill my Tough Cookie, but I still have a food in play, or they kill my Ocelot Pride, but I've got a cat token. Something like that is why I always feel like it's favored, because those tiny advantages that Grixis is always looking for, I just get to do it. And I think it's also just like, Shops versus Grixis. Shops on paper should beat Grixis most of the time, and that's how I feel with this deck as well. Also, Grixis can't beat Tanglewire. My God, if you put a Tanglewire into play against Grixis and you just watch them squirm, it is the saddest thing to watch because their only outs to it are like force days. So if you're able to land a Tanglewire and they have to tap down all their permanents, interacting with an artifact for them is also quite difficult. And man, they just fall to a card like that. It's such a cool little silver bullet.
It feels like, yeah, Tolarian Academy and guys created all the really strong core parts of the deck. One thing that's surprising to me is that the only real land shooter is Expedition Map. I might have expected something like Sylvan Scrying or Crop Rotation maybe in the Tameo spot. Could you tell us why those cards aren't in the deck?
Well, yeah, we also Elvish Reclaim is also sneakily in there as a little 1 green guy.
Sorry, I don't respect Elvish Reclaimer. I don't count. But yeah.
Yeah, okay. you guys, this Elvish Reclaimer argument in the lands Discord has been it's a long time coming. But you could. I think Tameo is like crossing my fingers. Tameo doesn't get a point. I know she probably should, but like Tameo, specifically Tameo. All of the points of the deck are really powerful. Tameo is probably the last one I'd want to see go because she's like that one mana, just take over the game, create game objects. But yeah, I mean, there's definitely like Sylvan Scrying is probably a good enough card to be played in this deck. I agree. I should probably put it in, maybe in like, that Once Upon a Time slot because that card is a little bit stinky, but who knows? It's definitely something to think about. I think you're right. Getting the cards into play for me, Expedition Map and Elvish Reclaimer have been just good enough. But yeah, maybe Sylvan Scrying should get played. It's definitely the deck loves getting those lands into play as early and often as possible. So
yeah, I just think I can just imagine like if you have any of the cards that create multiple foods or multiple creatures, Crop Rotation will just get the kind of like I foreshadowed earlier about if you draw the wrong half of the deck. Crop Rotation allows you to always get the right payoff land for the half of the deck you've drawn.
Look, if Mouse slam dunks Tameo away from me, then I'll probably try Crop Rotation in that slot because the other points are pretty important. Maybe. I mean, Crop Rotation is really cool. It does. I do worry about it. How often you can get blown out, but Mental Misstep is unplayable at one point, right? So I feel like. That's a joke, by the way. It's
Mental Misstep wasn't it the most frequently played pointed card at the first event after it got pointed? Like,
yeah, it's a banger. I hate Mental Misstep. I hate to see that. Look at me one drop through my poor deck. I hate that card.
I don't know if you know, but this is actually the first episode we're recording for season 4, and we're just about to start the campaign for Mental Misstep to 2. Actually,
I will fight for that. Absolutely, dude. My whole deck. Do you know how like often I get before the pointing? It was the worst experience for me. I would walk away from tournaments just being like, "Damn, this stupid card." Every card in my deck is 1 mana at some point, and I just get blown out by Mental Misstep all the time because against my deck, it's like better than Force of Will because my deck, like all of my 1-drop, it would just always happen. Every opponent, I'd play my 1-drop like my Ocelot Pride, and they'd be like, "I'm sorry, I know I did this to you in game 1, but here's my Mental Misstep again." It was infuriating. So yeah, that card's so good. I mean, it's obviously like even playable in this deck. As a point.
Mental Misstep, yeah. Although I think Mental Misstep is probably at its worst in synergy decks though, because it doesn't add anything to the synergy.
Agreed. Yeah, I agree. You put it in purely as like I need to play another pointed card, and this is the one that I can get because it's just like heinously powerful in its own right. But yeah, I do agree. Like all of my pointed cards in this deck are either a extremely powerful synergy card, or it's on theme like the One Ring, which is the One Ring and Hobbits. That it's we got to do it.
I had this I had like an interaction like at F&M last night where I played down a Tameo, when they Mental Misstepped it, and I had Force back up, and so like Tameo survived, he got removed. But then I was just thinking to myself with that interaction, it's like they played Mental Misstep, they lost 1 card and 2 life. I dixed the blue card of life with a Force of Will. I'm like, this is Mental Misstep in many situations is straight up better than Force of Will. I've also resolved that taking a little bit of a journey away from food for a moment, but I've got lots of people for some reason who like always say to me, it's like, oh, the 7-point cast is basically just like a propaganda arm for Mental Misstep, for like Mental Misstep pointings. And like, look, personally, I've always tried to like, at least in the context of the podcast, take a bit of a oh, like, yeah, haha, laugh along, blah blah blah. Like Liam is propagandizing out there, power to him. But I'm thinking now, since I'm going to be accused of this anyway, I should just indulge in the propaganda and like get straight up. People who are saying that mental misstep needs to go to zero. I have no idea what like I reason is beyond me how that argument makes any sense. There are so many cards in the 1 point list which see absolutely zero play. Like and there are even cards in the 2 point list which see zero play. And mental misstep reliably, like 20 to 30% of the meta rock is paying a point for it. So like yeah, it's like both. Both doesn't make sense in the sense that lots of people are paying for the point for it, which is almost like the hallmark of an appropriately pointed card. But also, how can we say so confidently that it at zero it could be having like a negative effect on the meta when so much of the meta is playing it? Like it's not like a before or after mental misstep was banned. It's still around. It's still doing its thing. So anyway, that's my little mental misstep rant.
No, I love it. I completely agree.
Just while we're on the mental misstep being played a lot, that argument applies word for word for Nethergoyf as well.
Wait, in what way?
Well, Nethergoyf, people complaining about Nethergoyf being pointed, but it was unironically played in all the Grixis lists, including the winning Grixis list.
I didn't just play in all of them, but it was played in a bunch of them.
Sorry, a lot of them, yeah. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, why are people still complaining about Nethergoyf not being worth a point when people are unironically playing a point for it and doing really well with it?
Yeah,
This is great.
The lands Discord definitely. I think if Never Go for Mental Misstep got a D point before Gamble, I think the lands Discord would have a riot.
Kix might have to return to the public points discussion and.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, you don't want that guy to return. He's got a lot of opinions that he's been holding back.
Yeah.
He's been living through us without us. He'd be asking, he'd be like, "What's PvD doing today? Like, what's happening in there?"
really?
Yeah, because he everybody loves being rage baited by public points discussion a little bit, Like you go in there and you get angry and you get so worked up when you read it. I know that I've said this to a lot of people recently, and you guys might hate it, but I think they should just delete the channel. I just don't care. Like, get rid of it. Delete the channel. We're not talking about food anymore. Let's listen. If they delete PPD, everyone's initial thought is, well, everyone's just going to talk about points in different channels. Great. We have like 10 channels for 10 archetypes where people can talk about it. But PPD, people go in there specifically to, they go to a weeklies, they get trip mined a couple times, and they go, I need to go into this channel and start yelling about trip mine. And I feel like if you take away that ability, people aren't going to do it. Like, I feel like we're just going to get, and all of the arguments are so circular, and it's always the same arguments every single day, and it just goes, sometimes someone brings up a good point, think like, Ephemerate, or something, we had that recently, but I think they should just delete it, and I'm not against weaponizing our channel to do it, just like you guys are, let's go.
Look, I don't buy public points discussion. Like in the grand scheme of things, yeah, some people get worked up, but like, I think really sometimes. So I will make a point of always reading everything that's posted there because but it is extensively like if you don't know a committee member personally or you're not near one or whatever, you can voice your opinion in PPD and someone will read it. And so I take that seriously. I'm like, what, if someone's gone to the effort to post things, I'll read it. And I will say that like if you were going to like an entertainment channel, public points discussion I think is the equivalent of like Neighbours. In like for 90% of the time nothing happens. It's like maybe a few like fairly mild-mannered back and forths about, oh, I think this card's good, and someone else goes, no, I don't think it's quite good enough, or oh, I think this card's really good. It's like, okay, but like maybe some bad decks are playing it as well or whatever. But then like for some reason, like once every 2 hours, there's this absolute like shit fight over something, or someone just goes, that's it, I'm done, or whatever. I'm like, I think it gets a bad rap. I think most of the time it's very, very mundane, but there are definitely some, I guess, like peaks and troughs or whatever, which catch people's attention.
I think calling it mundane is just another way of saying totally useless. Like the conversations you just described often go like, I think X is good, and some will respond, yeah, but is it italics too good? Or I don't think it's good, but is it italics that good? I'm like, okay, I think this is a really productive contribution to the universe.
My favorite Neighbours episode from PPD was the planar nexus pointing. That was my favorite Fallout. I was watching people registered playing on Nexus who would then start telling like calling the committee names. Just like great TV. Great TV.
Yeah, look, that one was fun. Okay, look, I actually do have one more potential food card for you, and
Here we go.
I'm interested to see how.
The dessert, you might say.
Look,
Yeah.
I want you to test this card. Okay, I think
All
it
right,
doesn't
I
look
can do
like
it.
a food card, but I think it is a food card. Right, have you ever tested Exalted Sunborn?
Googling this 1 second.
Yeah,
Exalted Sunborn. Ah,
yeah,
yes, yes,
I'm
yes, yes.
finally causing the Google to happen. Yeah, revenge is mine.
Actually, this is an interesting one.
Well, for those at home who are also maybe Googling,
Yeah.
right? So Exalted Sunborn is a 5 mana 4/5 flying lifelink, so it's just Baneslayer Angel. But it has the replacement effect of if one or more tokens will be created, create twice that many tokens instead, and it has warp for 1 white. So for 1 and a white, you can have 1 turn of insane food generation. But there's also like a bunch of, I mean, I'm sure as you know, this deck has a lot of hidden synergies with your deck.
Mm. Yeah, I mean it's reading pretty well. Well, we'll have to deliberate on this on the food Discord a bit because
Yeah.
I do like I've the classic like command it always every time I see this effect I just think okay, commander players enjoy that because the classic like double tokens, but yeah, I mean I always do. I really enjoy cards that have that have the ability to come down for like a cheap mana cost. Like Kappa Cannoneer is one of my favorite cards in the deck because it essentially is just a 1 blue card, and the Exalted Sunborn is the same. If for 2 mana you can even just like, for example, curving Ocelot Pride into this on turn 2, get in with Ocelot Pride and make 2 cats. You're kind of on the way to your City's Blessing, and that's like the flaw. Yeah, maybe this card it's definitely interesting.
Just consider, for example, right, like the turn two also apply. I mean, it's obviously got the Felia warp trick. You can end a turn Felia, then warp this in, then get back permanently. There's like, the times with Ocelot Pride, that where it's like you're nearly at the City's Blessing. Where if you have like this card, maybe on turn 3 or 4, you can like get in with a Pride, make 2 cats, get the City's Blessing, and then it will then the trigger again, right? Because then the Ocelot Pride's like, oh, I've got to make 2 more cats, but then this thing's like, no, you've got to make 4 more cats.
Yeah, I'll be honest, I didn't really. I like this card. This is interesting. I'm gonna play it. Well, I'll let you know how it goes. It's $20, so if it's bad, I'm gonna send you an invoice
Alright.
to the 7 point cast towers. I'll send an invoice. But I mean, the interaction with Felia is interesting.
Also, like at least one time, tell me how it goes with the Academy Manufactor.
Yeah, that was my kind of thought is, the way Exalted Sunborn and cards like this is, the way you layer your replacement effects is very important to the way that this deck plays. And so layering your Exalted Sunborn after everything is obviously a home run. But I will like to say, like, we have 3 replacement effects in this deck, and the outcome of applying each of these differently is very, very important. And was actually a judge call that I made during the event to end all events. I had a Stride Hanger and a Peregrine took in play, and I was just wondering, how that alters the outcomes. And even the way I asked the judge was like incorrect. I asked in a way that was, I should have just asked, how many food tokens do I make when this applies? How many do I make when this applies? And I just wanted to, to quickly call out how, when it comes to replacement effects, take a second and think about it, because Exalted Sunborn's replacement effect going on top of Academy Manufacturer seems pretty heinous. I'm gonna play this card. I'm gonna try it out. It's also it's just a beater, right? Flying lifelink.
Yeah.
It's just the life gain synergies. I mean, this could probably, if you've read Sorin of House Markov, this flips it immediately.
Yep.
So looks cool.
Very cool. Well, look, there's lots of stuff on the menu to talk about for the food deck, but we might have
How long have you been sitting on that one, Liam? How much stuff's on the menu?
You know what? It actually just came to me just then. I didn't plan it at all. But we do like to wrap up with a couple of quick questions. So I'll fire them off you. Firstly, we normally like to ask about What Universes Beyond set would you like to see next? However, since your deck is kind of mono Universes Beyond, the question is, what UB set do you think would have the best food cards thematically?
That's a good one. Obviously, MasterChef would be the best Universes Beyond for us. Or like, you know, Universes Beyond. I mean, we you know we're only a stone's throw away from doing MasterChef, but
I think you might have an Uber Eats promotional crossover.
yeah, I mean they could do it. I think we're getting them. The Hobbit and the Lord of the Rings are kind of the ones that I've always thought, and we're getting the Hobbit soon. I mean, that's going to be a monster set for the archetype. I want them to do obviously World of Warcraft for my own personal reasons, but yeah, I think we already have a bunch of these. The Hobbit's going to be really good, and then yeah, Universes Beyond MasterChef. It's coming soon, 2027. I think they said they would do that. So
All right. The next one is every one of these sets produces like a different art for the food token. Which food token do you use, or if you were to make a custom one, what would it be?
I have the perfect food token. I have slam dunked the Krabby Patty from the Secret Lair, SpongeBob. It kind of perfectly exemplifies the issues with Universes Beyond that, that the implications of Universes Beyond in Magic, and also, the exclusive Secret Lair only cards as well. It's kind of just like that perfect wrapped up thing that I have that, rage baits everybody that I play against. And also there's some great free tokens at Games Portal from an artist called Marzipan who does like digital art, and I've got a bunch of those from Games Portal. So shout out to like that little, it's like one of the community members' kids who've like done some of the art, and they've put those on tokens and put them in, in the store. And so those are really unique food tokens that I get to kind of pull out sometimes amongst my Krabby Patties. But yeah, really cool.
Incredible. And the final quick question is, the points announcement's coming up in 7 days or 8 days.
Oh, yeah.
On the 7th of December. I don't want to know what you think is going to be pointed. I would like to know what cards are currently flying under the radar because of fervor around cards like Manifold and Tezzeret that you think might be pointed in a subsequent update when the dust settles.
I think that, you know what? Let's give Time Walk another point. Nathan has been like, I don't want to use the analogy of a cockroach, but Nathan has been living under this like combo meta of like, bashing head against Brennan and Richard on Storm every week, and he still just can't stop winning. I mean, he can't beat Storm, but I think once Storm and Bots and Grixis gets pointed, I think Time Walk deck's going to fly ahead really quickly. Just because they're at that quote unquote synergy deck that's currently, there's quite of a gulf between them and Storm. And I'm quite worried for Time Walk. I mean, Ang Walks is this new hotness that I'm worried is going to take over the format as soon as we slam dunk Storm.
Ang Walks, all right. That's the big meta prediction. You heard it here.
Yeah,
first.
you're gonna hear it. Trust me, you're gonna hear this a lot more.
We love ending on a note of sincerity in our podcasts.
Yeah.
All right. Well, guys, thanks so much for listening. If you would like to be a guest in the 7 Point Cast, we are always looking for new people. So please, approach Liam and I in person or shoot us a message. I don't know about you, Liam, but I got to meet lots of cool listeners at the event to end all events, and a lot of people. I would say, I'd introduce myself, and they were saying, "Oh, you're Mouse," and what I thought they were about to say is Mouse from the committee. But actually what they said was, "You're Mouse from the podcast." So the podcast is more well known. The podcast about the format is more well known than the committee for the format, which I thought was kind of funny.
I had a similar thing, but in the opposite direction, which was, "Oh, you're Liam from the podcast."
Oh,
that was me, right?
But look, that was really nice meeting all of those people, and kind of learning that the podcast does actually have real flesh and blood listeners and is not just been botted or something like that, which was cool. And Capers, did you get the same thing with Rad Nor's listeners?
Yeah, absolutely. I think like some people I'd be talking and people would like stop and walk past and be like, "I know your voice. Are you Capers?" Yeah, it was. It definitely motivated us definitely in Red North to keep working on content because of how many people would just come up and be like, "Hey, like I like your videos. I like what you guys do. Keep doing it." and we got a big kick up the bum. So we have some pretty huge plans on the way in terms of stuff we want to do. I'm sure you guys have, like, your season 4 is going to be a big one with all of these new decks just like showing up in the format. So yeah, it's great. It was a great experience at that event.
Awesome. All right. Well, thanks everyone for listening. You can listen on YouTube, you can listen on Spotify, and it's just once again great to be out here making some high quality content, for the 7
Oh, yeah.
format. All right. Catch everyone.